be here. Certainly to the MolDX team, Dr. Gerard and others, thank you for the opportunity as well as the work you've done in the space of pharmacogenomic testing. Certainly very important. I'm with Myriad Genetics and wanted to provide a couple of comments on two of the draft LCDs on pharmacogenomics. So to break them down, I'll be commenting mostly on the combinatorial LCD DL35633. That's also in the context of the general pharmacogenomics DL38294. And primarily what I wanted to touch on today is the provider restriction in the combinatorial LCD. As stated, limited coverage policy for GeneSight when ordered by a psychiatrist, and contrast that to the general LCD where it's restricted to providers who have the licensure qualifications and necessary experience to both diagnose the condition being treated and also to prescribe medications. The context for this comment largely comes from the rationale provided in the general LCD, where peer-reviewed literature suggests that patients do as well when a pharmacogenomic test is ordered by a psychiatrist as by a primary care provider. I think that data is critical in the context of treatment of depression. As you can see here, these are just the percentages of those prescriptions, antidepressant prescriptions that are written. Primary care accounts for approximately 70%, psychiatry and neurology at 22%, and then there's other at about 8%. In the United States, particularly in the Medicare population, you have a significant shortage of psychiatry and psychiatrists. I'll highlight just a couple of these facts here, where 55% of the counties in the United States do not have a psychiatrist. This leads to the shortages mentioned, long wait times, and we've also seen in recent years an increase in suicide rates in the 65 to 74 year age group. So back to the data that identified that primary care providers are able to use pharmacogenomic testing similarly to psychiatrists. This was a study published last year with a combinatorial test, GeneSight. To the best of my knowledge, this impact study is the only peer-reviewed publication that assessed the differences in primary care providers with psychiatrists with the use of pharmacogenomic testing for the treatment of major depressive disorder. It looked at the clinical outcomes of patients with MDD following treatment that was guided by the combinatorial test GeneSight. So this was approximately over 1,800 patients that were diagnosed with moderate to severe depression. You can see the breakdown here. 57% of patients were treated by psychiatrists, and 43% in the study were treated by primary care providers. This was a one-arm study and showed that through the course of the 8 weeks, you have symptom improvement as well as response and remission throughout this course of that study for patients that were enrolled. When we looked more closely into the differences between psychiatrists and primary care providers, you see that across the board, not only are the patients doing well when treated by primary care providers, but they're doing significantly better than if treated by a psychiatrist. The main conclusion here is that primary care providers are able to successfully incorporate the combinatorial pharmacogenetic test into the treatment of their patients. Just a couple more comments, particularly from the expert panel that was convened a couple of months ago. In that discussion on June 26th, there was a high degree of agreement among those who were speaking that there's not a reason to limit coverage by provider type for pharmacogenomic testing One of the CAC members on the call commented that pharmacogenomic testing is becoming increasingly common and should not be restricted by provider type. So based on this data, I'll just close by what we will be requesting is a removal of when ordered by a psychiatrist in the DL 35633 draft LCD, and to replace it with the language that is in the general combinatorial draft LCD here, when ordered by providers who have the licensure, qualifications, and necessary experience and training to both diagnose the condition being treated and also to prescribe medications. So I genuinely thank you for your time. I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any.